Hello everyone, we're going to be getting controversial on this channel. I'll basically be saying that Beyblade X, from the original July launch, that system has managed to surpass the entirety of all of Burst 7 years and onwards of their system design. Now, how they did that, we're going to get into, but what we'll be also getting into is smallbays.com, because we have an extreme sale. If you purchase 3 Beyblade X products, you get a 15% discount on your order. There's a separate sale also going on disconnected from the X stuff, which is a winter blowout sale, which is 15% discount. Optionally support the channel, it keeps the channel going, and I appreciate any support regardless. But with that being said, what are my reasonings for this? First of all, the way that the burst system works for bursting is basically you have your layer, your disc, and your driver, and you basically twist the burst bay together to assemble it. Now keep this in mind. Now basically resistance is determined by the amount of clicks that you have on the teeth, but also your design. And the issue with how burst works is because of the locking system in teeth, certain designs that could be really freaking good or cool are hindered by the locking system in teeth. For an example, the infamous single layer Chaos is easy to murder and to kill. Storm Spriggan, very cool design, but guess what? Because of how the teeth are, so easy to kill and murder. It's so many of these examples. If you look at a lot of the layer designs in Burst, they either have to be heavily modified because of the fact of the locking system, or whatever design they do have, it ends up that they burst pretty easily and die, which is it's unfortunate, but that is one of the big issues in general with Beyblade Burst that really hurts it a lot. But what else is there? Longevity. When you think of longevity, you gotta think 5-10 years from now. And Burst technically for at least the first season stuff is almost already 10 years from now, but you know, we got a couple years to spare. But if you ask yourself, would it be easy to find the original Burst bays if I wanted to, and would getting into them work out? So the issue with Burst is kind of a few issues. Obviously there's the general power creep in general that Burst has, and that weight creep of stuff getting heavier and heavier and heavier, but aside from that, it's the teeth. Teeth are the hindrance to Burst, because the fact that when you have to click the stuff together, obviously teeth will wear over time, and some worse than others, but a lot of stuff just won't be usable in like a long period of time. Like aside from maybe GT, sparking, and DB/BU, I can't see much of the original stuff lasting too long, especially if you want to get into the original single or dual layer stuff, where that stuff, even during the time of when it was originally launched, dude, that so many people had to buy so many copies of one thing. And I honestly have to say that I do believe that a lot of the success in Beyblade Burst is not just because, okay, maybe the show and the manga have some really good qualities to them, the product design. I think it's also because of the fact that people had to buy so many copies of stuff. That's what contributed to it. And I genuinely believe that. And, you know, fair play to Takara Tomy, because the game's the game, and if the business works, the business works. But we're gonna move on to our next point, which is the layers, but also technically the drivers, how this connects to this. So the biggest issue is they just don't know how to balance out the teeth. So what I mean by this is like, what should deserve stronger teeth, what should deserve weaker teeth. Now attack types should always have the strongest amount of teeth because they're generating such large amounts of recoil, right? But in general with Burst, if you look at it from here and there, maybe some had stronger teeth than others, but if you look at it, attack was always kind of like, what were they thinking? Because of the fact that if attack generates a lot of recoil, you need to have good resistance. To me personally, I only really truly considered attack 100% seriously in Chozetsu when Extreme Dash and the attack dash drivers released, because that gave attack a lot less risk. And you shouldn't have so much risk for attack types, because if you do, then that's a really dumb thing to do. It's a really dumb thing to do, because then after you basically screw with so many layers that could be usable but can't be. Take for an example the infamous Legend Spriggan, where the recoil was so shit on it that it literally just kept killing itself in battle. Again, it's a tough concept, don't get me wrong. It's a tough concept to execute, but then that just goes to show that the system was not that good of an idea for the teeth idea. Even more than this is touching on layers now, some layers, for an example, aside from, let's say, variants on teeth and stuff, they could potentially get raised. So for an example, command or wizard or stuff like that. What I'm basically saying is that there'd be like a slope part and a teeth part. And the teeth part might be a little bit more raised up, would basically give you worse resistance. And you maybe saw another example like Glad Ragnarok and maybe some other stuff. And it's just weird stuff like that because you already have the factor of the teeth. Why are you doing things like that? Because there's no like designed consistency with what Takeru Tomy was doing. And also, it's just general, like, what is their consistency on this? Because, like, when you hit sparking, right, because so far, you know, more or less, Bays kept on bursting, you know, even Shozetsu, Bays kept on bursting, Death Driver is a little bit, but once you get to, like, GT was, like, this weird period where nothing kinda was bursting, but, you know, stuff still technically could, but then Sparking is where this gets really, because Sparking had the double chassis. And what was really awkward was that the double chassis basically would almost never burst at all. And it's like, guys, what are we doing? It's called, the series name is called Beyblade Burst, and they can't burst. They can burst in their quotations, but they can't. Like at the end of DB and BU, you kind of got to where it at least felt like they could burst a lot more. At least honestly, maybe even more than like the GT era. Maybe. Let's talk about Beyblade X. So how does Beyblade X handle the bursting? Because we kind of gave a lot of crap to burst, but how does Beyblade X do it? No, first of all, we got to address this in general, but the bursting mechanic is not something that a lot of people are going to be fond of, just because honestly, it's going to be a very tricky thing to design, and I don't think you'll ever have this truly where it can be this perfect world where it can be done, but at least X is the closest possible to it being effectively executed. So now let's talk about the Beyblade X system. Now this system is basically focused by the blade at the top metal part, the ratchet that has a number of sides and height, and the bit. Now how this basically works for an X Beyblade is that your bit will either have high resistance or low resistance depending on what type it is, already doing better than burst for proper game balancing, which burst kind of did, but not really. I'm not counting the one time they kind of did it with like the bearing driver, but the other part is that all the bursting is in the ratchet. Now, bits can have low or high resistance, and basically, depending on how tight your bit is, how much resistance that forces the ratchet to turn. But because of the fact it's not the top part, you can have so much more freedom in these crazy aggressive metal designs that just allow X to have more creative freedom and allow bursting to at least be a little bit more fun. Now, while bursting as a mechanic can never truly work for Beyblade in a real competitive setting, like true competitive, like plastic gin and metal fight, at the very least, X does the job of executing this properly. You don't have to worry about what you have to use. Like, yes, okay, maybe some blades are slightly raised, that they kind of took that concept from burst, but generally, as of the time of this recording, Takeru Tomy has managed to surpass the dogshit design of the Beyblade Burst system. I'm sorry, but like the system is outdated, X has surpassed it. It works. It works properly with the game balance so far on the bits, on the ratchets, and it perfects what Burst was like, didn't know what it was doing. Like, I feel like Burst was kind of like someone operating in a dark room trying to get to like the end of a hallway, while Burst is like that, well, from Burst to X, it's like they had a flashlight, and they have the way to get to that path they're trying to go to. I don't know what I'm trying to say, I'm just trying to say X found the way. But aside from that, listen, you can still like Beyblade Burst, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like Beyblade Burst, right? I like it. I had a lot of enjoyment out of it, but I just like X more for the execution of the Burst gimmick. And listen, that's okay. Burst has a flawed system, probably the most flawed out of all the generations. That's the controversial part. I don't know if that is controversial. That is true. Burst is the most flawed out of all the generations. That is, yeah, that is true. But you can still have enjoyment out of it. And that being said, either way, you know, you can still have enjoyment for all generations, but you can still accept certain flaws in design. Like, you know, obviously, X will probably still have some flaws, whatever, but it won't nearly be to the extent that Beyblade Burst was, at least not right now at the time of this recording. And obviously we will see whether or not this ages well for X, or if we don't. But aside from that, that's pretty much it for this video. Again, hopefully we can keep all the discussions very peaceful and friendly. I'm sure the Burst fans will not try to kill me. Yeah, but listen, man, like, what else is there to say? What else is there to say? And that's pretty much going to be it for now. So, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day and bye.